I'm joined from Sydney by the editor of the Daily Telegraph, Ben English. Ben, the Daily Telegraph has been pushing for a Royal Commission for some time through your Save Our Heroes campaign. Explain to our viewers at home, what will this Royal Commission mean for the veterans and their families?
It'll mean the world to them, Rita, and good evening to you and to all the viewers. This is finally restoring an element, a degree of honour and dignity to the memories of their fallen sons and daughters. Let's remember that, let's not forget that there's many multitudes more people who died on our shores in peacetime, having returned from Afghanistan and other war fronts, than actually died in those battlefields. And that is a national disgrace, it's a national shame. And today's decision is finally what was called for and what we've been calling for many years.
But the Prime Minister had almost to be dragged there kicking and screaming by his own backbench. Why did it take so long to get here?
Well, I think you alluded to it earlier in the program, Rita. I think we had a Defence Department that was resistant to this from the outset, a Veterans Department that was resistant from the outset, and perhaps a Minister who was either didn't have the capacity or the will to stand up to those very two powerful departments. And I think that at the same time, the Prime Minister did his level best at the time to come up with a solution. That was the Standing Commission of Inquiry. That was a very strong and good step forward. But what it missed was those people who had died between those veterans had died between 2018 and 2020. Now, for them, the families or loved ones would have to come forward and request an investigation into their deaths, which is entirely unsatisfactory. This Royal Commission redresses that. And I think that the difference is that we now have a Defence Minister who is on the side of the soldier, of the veterans and their families.
Well, we know Royal Commissions are great at identifying problems, but too often we've seen governments fail to follow through with the recommendations and the problems continue. How important is it for the advocates and supporters of campaigns like Save Our Heroes to keep up the pressure on the government to make sure that there's meaningful change and they fix the scourge of veteran suicides?
Oh, it's absolutely critical, Rita. I mean, it began with Julianne Finney after, and she came to us after her son passed away, David Finney, and off the back of that, we began a series of, began a concerted investigation into this issue, and it became apparent that this was enormous, and as a result of that advocacy, we were able to bring it to the attention of, more broadly, the state government, the federal government. Now, initially, they were very resistant right across the board. And if it wasn't for that consistent advocacy by veterans' families and veterans themselves and this newspaper, this wouldn't have come about. At the same time, no one can now basically, pat themselves on the back and walk away from this. Yes, we have the Royal Commission, but it's incumbent upon everyone who has a stake in this to ensure that that Royal Commission is not the be-all and end-all, and that the Standing Commission continues to do its job to protect future veterans' lives.
Now, turning to another issue, Prime Minister Scott Morrison is pushing premiers and chief ministers to rubber stamp his plan for home quarantine for vaccinated Australians. But the PM has met with some resistance, with WA Premier Mark McGowan and Victorian Health Minister Martin Foley stressing ahead of National Cabinet this afternoon they will follow the medical advice before endorsing the proposal. Goodness me, Ben, it seems like New South Wales has done all the heavy lifting in taking overseas arrivals, and the other states just find excuses not to do their part.
Yeah, this is definitely the most disappointing aspect in terms of the political response to the pandemic. Was there ever a more fake news, disingenuous and phony term than "we'll rely on the health advice"? What they actually mean is we'll rely on the polling advice. It's entirely a political response to what they see as a political dilemma. It's not a political dilemma, it's a national crisis, and we should be acting together on a unity page on this one. And instead, the states have devolved to this divisive approach that serves their own ends. It's actually extremely disappointing. And you're right, New South Wales has certainly shouldered the bulk of the burden, particularly in terms of those returning travellers in quarantine. So it's not fair, and I think it's a big test for the Prime Minister. It's very difficult because of the nature of the Federation. I do sympathise with him because technically they can just say no to him. So it'll be down to the force of his, or the capacity of his leadership to bring them on board.
Well, this approach has been very popular in WA in particular, and to a lesser extent Queensland and Victoria. But do you think Australians are getting tired of the hyper-cautious approach, border closures and the reluctance to open back up and rejoin the rest of the world?
Yeah, I think one of the most depressing moments was when the Health Minister last week said that it doesn't matter if 100% of us are vaccinated, it's no guarantee that we'll have freedom of movement. Well, I'm sorry. Isn't it a government by the people, for the people? It sounded a little bit ominously like a police state when he said that. And surely that's the primary incentive for us to get vaccinated, is that we can actually leave. I mean, it feels like we're the early settlers again, with admittedly a few more creature comforts, but we're imprisoned. Let us out. Get us vaccinated. I mean, there was a Florida Republican mayor who said, "You're vaccinated, start acting like it." And I think it's pretty good advice.
Absolutely. That's the pro-vaccine message. The people who are telling you to get vaccinated, but then telling you nothing's going to really change, you still have to wear a mask and socially distance and you can't travel. Well, that is the worst message you can be sending out there, Ben, if you want people to actually get vaccinated, be proactive and get vaccinated as soon as they can. Absolutely. And look, they've got an uphill battle because of some of the bumps and scrapes along the way with, the concerns about clotting in relation to AstraZeneca and some of the other vaccines that have been tried. So they already have a PR battle ahead of them. Surely they've got to use the greatest motivator of all, is to get us travelling. I think there's almost a sadistic element to this. No, I'm sorry, you're going to get vaccinated, but no, you're not free yet. We still have to wear the masks. I just think the vaccination has got to be the primary motivator. Absolutely. Ben English, thanks for your time this evening. Thank you. See you, Rita.